Good afternoon, my very good friend David Joe International.
Thank you, my friend. Shago, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Good to see you again.
Same here. Good to see you.
People may not really know the history behind David Joe International, but, but, but that name is as old as our friendship.
I didn't get a chance to change that before we started, but that's fine.
Yeah,
You're right. It's a long time coming,
yeah.
definitely.
So those of us who knows the history behind that name, we're always very proud when we call you by that name because you are practically living that name after nearly 30 years after.
Well, I'll probably say a little more than 30.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, to me, it's about
a
30
little
years,
over 30 years
but with
now. Yes.
you, a little over 30 years.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
You're right, and that goes to the fact that the dreams of our childhood can manifest
they
in
are very
time.
important. Yeah, they are very
Very
important.
important, and that's why we must always encourage our children to dream, to kind of share what they have on their minds, so that and we can help to nurture them.
Mm. Kunle, I'm so happy with Leadership Blueprint podcast, where we've marked a year anniversary of this podcast, and it's been wonderful. Um, I would say we've not yet gotten to where we wish to be, but definitely we are moving in the right direction. And I want to appreciate people who have decided to join the train, people who chat me uh, from the back end, who try to offer support, offer advice. And I can see the trajectory of what we are doing. And I know that this is going to be something that is going to be very significant in what determines the future and the destiny of Africa in the nearest future.
I share the same confidence and the same belief, and thank God for what uh, what has happened so far. And also massive congratulations to not just you, but to the entire team
Yeah,
uh, for the organization, the leadership that's been provided,
yeah,
and for, of course, to the team, because without the team,
yeah,
a vision cannot really come to fruition. So it's congratulations all around, and gratitude.
yeah. Thank you so much. And I also want to use this occasion to also thank, I don't really want to call them our, our fans. I would rather prefer to call them climbing companion, because we are together in this game. That is the people who are following us, who are taking time out to listen to what we have to say. I will prefer to choose to call them climbing companion because the way to the top, like John Maxwell would say, is uphill all the way. So it's a journey uh, that requires a lot of effort, and it's not a roller coaster kind of journey. It's a journey that demands a lot of discipline, that requires a lot of effort, that requires a lot of input. And I want to thank all our climbing companions who have kept faith with us in the last 1 year. So, Kule, I just wanted to say something to the people that have been following us, who have been taking time out to learn from what we have to offer. I just wanted to say something to them
Yes.
for
Uh,
their
uh,
participation.
Absolutely. It's a huge privilege to serve.
Yeah,
You may have the desire to serve, but if no one needs your service, or if no one responds to your service, then your effort does not necessarily go does not have any mileage. So with that in mind, I want to really say a huge thank you to everyone who has been part of this journey. we're only at the start, frankly.
Very,
The journey
that's still
is
at the
long,
start. Yeah,
but how you start matters.
it
So that's
matters.
why we're taking the time to really thank them, and the congratulations is also theirs as it is ours.
Yeah,
That this is their product, this is their journey, it's their service,
yeah.
and thank you for staying by us, for believing in this dream,
Mm,
for putting your goodwill is a precious commodity,
mm,
for lending us your goodwill,
mm,
for supporting what we do,
mm.
for listening, for giving feedback,
Yeah,
for even the gentle criticism that
yeah,
you send away that help us to improve. We're grateful
absolutely.
for all of this,
Exactly.
and we know that, look, that you're still um, you still feel very strongly about us, and you want to continue with us on the journey. So we implore you,
Mm,
stand strong with us.
mm,
Let's continue to make this our journey,
mm,
because a journeyman
mm.
cannot afford to travel alone.
Yeah, that's true.
The companion. I like the time you use the companions,
Yeah, yeah,
your
companions.
partners,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and really, and that's how we see you. So we honor you, we value you. You are very important to us. So please, stay by us and continue to help us on this journey.
yeah. Thank you. Kule, we have a very special uh, topic to talk about today, and that is on system, structure, and strategic leadership.
Yes.
Um, System, structure, uh, it's something that I've come to have some insight about right from my university days when we did some courses around system theory and all that. And I have come to value what a system has to offer in the place of individual brilliance. You know, sometimes you can have an individual moment of brilliance, and which is excellent, which is okay. But when you now aggregate a collection of different versions of individual brilliance and you put them together, and then they produce a result that is different from what an individual or from what an individual they produce an amazing result that at the end every is left amazed. Is what a system can do. What we want to talk about today.
Mm.
Kule, I want to ask you because I've always viewed system as a repeatable processes that you need to put in place to achieve a goal on an idea. Because if you are not able to repeat it, if you are not able to reproduce it, if you are not able to do it all over again, producing the same result, producing the same effect, producing the same efficiency, producing the same effectiveness, then you have not really gotten that idea of how system work. I just want to ask you, what is your own idea of a system or a structure in this context that we are talking about?
Yes, there's this popular maxim that says that if you want to go fast for a season,
Mm,
you go alone.
very long.
Or if you want to go far
Mm,
for many seasons,
mm,
then you go with a team.
mm.
You go with a structure behind you.
Structure.
You go with defined processes. And that's exactly what we're talking about. Um, Passion in itself is energy.
Mm,
It's energy. It can be much, it can be less.
mm,
But if passion is not put into a structure,
mm,
into an organization,
mm,
it will it will run out of steam.
mm,
So And that really is the philosophical mindset behind this.
mm,
Um, if you look at it really and truly, most of the times, a vision will begin with an individual.
yeah.
Someone somewhere start to conceive some ideas
It's a
to improve
passionate
things,
individual.
yeah, to create something,
Mm,
right? You can even come up with a name that you are so enamored about,
mm,
e.g., David International,
yeah,
and they will excite you at a point.
yeah.
But that can just be what people say pipe dream. They call it pipe dream, right? It may be just that, so long as all you have is the excitement
Mm,
of that dream.
mm. And that excitement can even produce some amazing results. It's not that
Well,
it's
yes, it
not going
can.
to do
It
without.
can,
Yeah,
but there's also another maxim which I want to throw in here that one cannot multiply.
yeah.
You see, so unless maybe it's an amoeba, unicellular organisms that, but for in the mammalian world,
Yeah,
one cannot multiply.
yeah,
So my point here is this: yes, we can all start up with an idea to produce a product or some service. And I'm talking generally speaking now, it can be leadership service, it
yeah,
can be healthcare service, it can be a product such as we are creating vehicles, tires, food items, whatever it is, classified broadly under food, under products and services. Yeah, and you can have a vision to say, oh, I'm going to do mine this way or that way. That is a vision. Now, obviously, someone can then say, I really see a problem that I want to solve whilst doing this.
mm,
And once and then you have a passion for that, for solving that problem. And your passion uh, does not keep you still. It provokes some kind of action that then moves you into actually doing something about it. That's a mission. Okay. But having said all that, the point is, if that thing will have a future, anything we're doing, whether it's a service delivery or a product development,
mm,
we need we need processes, defined processes. We need structures
mm.
behind them
That
in
is
order
to have a
in order,
future.
for the thing to have a future.
Mm.
Otherwise, it will just be, that's like I said, like a flash in the pan.
Be for a season.
It will just be for a season. You will
Mm,
do it until you can't do it anymore.
mm,
And it might be for obvious physical reasons. It
mm,
might be because, well, all the resources you have to deploy personally are already exhausted.
mm,
It might be because, well, your vision gets blurred. You can't see any better.
mm,
You might even have personal discouragement. You may have some personal difficulties. That means that as an individual, you can't continue alone.
mm,
That's why it can't just be a one-man show or a one-woman show. If anything is going to last and go far and further, then the moment a vision is clearly defined, or at least a phase of vision is defined, the next most important thing is to think about structure, is to think about processes. And I'm saying those things in a way because I think in this conversation, a lot of our discussions will be interwoven, in kind of overlap in a way. So there is in the world of organizational structures and leadership development, you talk about strategic thinking
yeah,
and you talk about strategic structure.
yeah.
Right. One is what are the things that we do?
Mm,
The other one is how do we arrange ourselves?
mm,
And the things we do, we can define it in simple terms,
mm,
but we can also further define it and refine it
mm,
and break them down into simple, actionable steps.
mm,
For people who do business studies, business management, who do business analysis, who do all of this organizational development professions, these are the kind of things that you go into. You ultimately,
mm,
so if I take a typical organization,
mm,
let's say, um, let's say Toyota,
mm.
you can have like high level key activities.
Yeah.
We have manufacturing, we
Mm,
have human resources,
mm,
you have customer services.
mm,
Now, you can have those, we have finance, we
Yeah.
have HR, we have legal. These are very high level definition of the process, almost like what we call the level zero
Yeah.
of the process breakdown. But that's only good for you to identify almost like the main structure, like or the should I say the backbone structure, and also the backbone activities. You need to then take this further and decompose it
Yeah.
to several layers.
And I
With
think that was what Henry Ford did with Ford Motors.
absolutely, and these are practices that you know it even predates Henry Ford. These are practices that go far beyond. It's think about ancient times when particularly civilizations that became prominent.
Mm.
Think about Egypt, think about Greece, think about Rome, think about even Persia.
Russia.
All of these organizations, what they were able to do that differentiated them from what we call inferior civilizations was that they were able to break things down. They
Yeah.
became specialized to the extent that they broke things down.
Yeah.
And then every process they have has ownership.
Mm.
So that's what I'm saying. Structure and process, they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
They're all interwoven and
Mm.
they all feed off certain fundamental questions,
Mm.
which has to do with strategy.
Mm.
How do we want to operate? But
Mm.
of course, how is only subsequent to defining the what, which we have already, I think we are taking that for granted in this
Yeah.
session that we've already defined the vision, the purpose, the mission.
No,
It's now
because our podcast is kind of emerging in a series form. So
yeah,
I will take it for granted that we've already treated that in
exactly.
previous episodes.
Exactly. So we are now really talking about the how. We are in the how.
Yeah.
And how has fundamentally to do with processes,
Processes.
people,
Mm.
data,
Mm.
technology, or tools.
And action plans.
Yes. So yes, and action plans definitely. Now, an action plan itself is sort of that's why I was talking about strategy in two strands:
Yeah.
the thinking behind it and the structure.
Yeah.
Structure fundamentally has to do with plans.
Mm.
The thinking is really saying let's try to understand what we want to do or what we need to do.
Mm.
So we are fundamentally talking about processes
Yeah.
and the structure.
Yeah.
Structure is inclusive of plan, of people, and all that. Whereas the thinking side of it is more of the processes and the extent to which you can define those processes and do what they call a mapping. You map them to one another. You are mapping processes, and I'm talking this way because these are things I do like day
Yeah.
to day, right? So I do in organizations. So you're ultimately mapping people to process to
Mm.
systems to
Mm.
data.
Mm.
That's the organization in a nutshell.
Thank you, Kunle. I think your thought perfectly aligns with the way I have also conceived the notion of system structure. And if you want to put another concept just side by side, then we can also say strategy, because the ultimate goal of what makes system and structure to function is because you're able to aggregate all your strategies together, breaking down those processes that we talk about will involve implementation of certain strategies, what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And then when you now aggregate them together and each of those strategies are functioning independently but interrelatedly, that is when the system it's expected to produce the result that we are all looking for. Now,
Absolutely.
I want to understand how actually we can build these systems and structure,
Yeah.
because just like you mentioned it, It is one thing to have a system and a structure in place. It is another thing for that, for fluidity to occur within that system. And most of the crises we have in Africa today, it's not as if we don't have systems and structures in place. We do have, but it's just that the fluidity at which those processes are functioning is not efficient and effective enough. There are some, let me say, there's some rustiness that has overtaken the process, that's not making the process to produce the expected result. So I just want to understand, how do we build the system and the structure, knowing fully well that one of the greatest uh, leader that I've listened to made a statement, that is Roberta Kites. It says strategy gives us structure to deal with change. In other words, if you want to change the society, you want to change your organization, you don't just go into the problem and start doing something as if that is all that is required for change to happen. What you need first of all, is to identify your various strategies, the strategies that you need to implement. And then once you have been able to identify those strategies, then you are now able to aggregate them. Sometimes they may be related, they may be unrelated, but the most important thing is that at the end of the day, they are all able to function together in an harmonious way, that they are able to produce the desired result. Like if you look at the problems of Africa, for example, many people, majority of Africans believe that our problems are either maybe the way we are created. They believe it is natural. That is how we are being created. So some people can believe it is a natural occurrence why we are the way we are. Some people believe it is spiritual. The majority of the problems in Africa are spiritual problems. But I have stopped thinking about African problem being spiritual since 2018. You know, it took me so long before I could disengage myself from that. I'm not saying there are no spiritual problems, there are, but the problems confronting Africa today are not spiritual. They are just systemic. They are systemic and structural problems that needs to be fixed. So Kunle, now having laid the foundation that there are processes that needs to be put in place for structure or system to happen, how do we aggregate these processes, as it were, for us to be able to build a solid structure?
Right. I think that we can look at this in a variety of ways, but again, what we are aiming for is simplicity, so that whatever we discuss is actionable,
Yeah.
and any of us at our various levels can take this
Mm.
and action it,
Mm.
frankly speaking. Um, as you were talking, one of the things that was coming to my mind was, yes, that um, strategy doesn't just exist for its own sake.
Yeah.
Processes don't exist for their own sake.
Yeah.
Structures don't exist
Mm.
just for the sake of it. There
Mm.
must always be a reason for the structure, a
Mm.
reason for the process, a reason for the strategy that's adopted. And strategy, simply put, is just what and how.
Mm.
And I'll leave it at that. But the point here is, when we're talking about structure. I mean, strategy or even any of these other topics. The point is why.
mm,
So if why are we doing what we're doing?
mm,
That's very important. So um, and sometimes if I look at Nigeria, it looks like a big like a jumbo problem we're trying to solve. But so I want to kind of almost systemize it in my mind
yeah.
so that we don't feel too intimidated by the size of the problem.
Mm,
But the issue is this: people that do organizational structuring and process development or transformation,
mm,
they don't really try to take on the entire system
mm,
because that can get you bogged down. You can waste your time.
yeah. It's,
Oftentimes, what people then what's I mean, this kind of recent thinking is to say, look at the area that needs the most attention. What are the priority areas that need to be um, redeveloped, to be transformed,
mm,
and then focus on that one,
mm,
solve that problem,
mm,
then that then gives you what you call like a template
mm.
that can be adapted to the other areas. Because if you try to do everything, you will just never arrive.
Right. Yeah.
So, so for example, if I look at Nigeria and say, let's fix our educational system,
Mm,
and perhaps let's begin with the primary school.
mm,
I won't even try to fix everything straight away. I'll just let's say primary education. What do we do with it?
mm,
The first question is, what does good look like? What does success look like?
mm.
In other words, what what's that vision that we are saying?
What
That's
is the ideal thing
yeah.
that
What are we aiming for? We have to define a problem. Every problem has to be defined.
mm,
It has to be defined so clearly so that there are no ambiguities about it. And in that, you see, there's always a freedom to define the scope because you may have 100 things to do, but you don't have the time, you don't have the resources, you don't have the wherewithal. So you can say, yes, there are 100 things to do, but we're going to focus on five.
mm,
Let's do five well.
mm,
If we do five well, maybe we can take on the next five and then
mm,
the next five and so on and so forth. So even when you take a sector such as say, education,
mm,
the objective, the goal is never to try and we're not looking for a magic wand,
mm.
which is why when you say that the problems are not spiritual, yes, I agree with you. Depending on how you see the word spiritual, some people in their thinking they will define spiritual things as the intangible things that
Yeah.
drive the physical. So they don't go into the realm of spiritism and all that. So that's what I'm saying. Even spiritual is a word that can be that's understood differently by different people. But anyway, let's leave that aside. My
Yeah.
point here is this that we can it's always about that definition of scope and the definition of the problem so that we understand exactly what we are doing.
Mm,
What exactly, what problem are we solving?
mm,
Now, once that is defined, then we can now say, what is the what's how do we then approach that problem? What is the strategy? What is the structure? What are the processes? And frankly, Shagun, when we take everything, because there's an aspect of organizational study that's called system thinking,
mm,
or if I say solution development is called system thinking, which most people are familiar with. And the idea of system thinking is you want to abstract that physical solution almost on a paper. You want to define it conceptually so that you can see all of the various aspects of it. And then once you take all those aspects of it, then you want to start to decompose it and say, okay, we people register. So let's say registration. What is involved in registration? You begin to define and break down all of that process until you get to a level where you can't break it down any further. That is a key activity that people get involved in. So, for people who are familiar with that sort of practice, then you go from what they call level zero to level, I mean, or maybe level one, right through to level five. So, and and that is so essential that unless you do that, you will not be able to fully understand that problem properly. Because the end goal is you want to solve a problem that you understand. If you don't have adequate understanding,
Mm.
you will get to a point where you just grope in darkness. You're just guessing. And this is not about guessing. You want to have clarity. So, and this is part of the aspect of problem definition. You're not defining it just at high level. You want to define it and into as detailed level as possible. That will then start to initiate, oh, these are the things we need to do. That's very important. Now, for the things we need to do, the question is, how do we arrange ourselves to give ourselves the best chance to do it, to deliver it? That is why structures exist.
Mm.
So the structure is to make the process work.
Mm.
So there must be an alignment between the process at any level and the structure. So if you define a problem at level 0 level, then there must be a structure at level 0. And as you begin to break it down at whatever level you break things down to, for every definition, from every further breakdown of process, there must be a corresponding
Mm.
structural definition that aligns to it. And both the process and the structure, there must be ownership. So we are more or less saying people, process, people, structure. We're already kind of having that conceptually defined. And the reason is this: ultimately, everything has to be done by someone or by a system. So if that, I'll use the word persona, the role that is delivering, if it's not clearly defined and does not align with the process or the activity, then things are going to fall through the crack or through the cracks. And this is how you begin to develop systems and structure, because they must go hand in hand. You can't have what they call orphaned processes, meaning that process does not have any owner. You don't know exactly where it belongs.
Yeah.
Once something is coming out like that, it's either something that you don't need at all, or you have not properly, your structure has not been defined well to support what you need to do.
Kule, in our last podcast, we spoke about uh, why succession plan fails in Africa. And I remember uh, we mentioned some of some of the greatest industrialists that we've ever seen in Nigeria, who emerged as a very strong personality, very strong personal brand. You want to talk about Adeola Oguntola, you want to talk about MKO Abiola, you want to talk about Nwanyanwu of those days. You remember those times in secondary school when our colleagues at school will be arguing who is the richest man in Nigeria, and then they will be comparing assets and all that. But these people, whilst they were alive, they were able to build something. Of course, it will require some bit of processes, but you will also understand that those processes are tied to their personal branding, which means the only reason why those processes are functional is because of who they were, the personality that they brought into the organization or into the business. Everything about the business is revolving around their personal brand and personality. Whereas if you look at some other organization, let's take, for example, the Catholic organization as an organization, let's even come to our own Anglican communal structure. You may be a primate today, but the system does not depend on your personality. It doesn't depend on the brand of the kind of person that you are. Once you are gone, the the system has a way of producing another primate that will function according to the tenets of what the system has been able to produce. So in that regard, and we've seen the failure of processes that are built around personality. We've always discovered that after the demise of such an individual, the whole organization end up crumbling. We've seen that happen over and over again. And as you were talking at the beginning of this podcast, you reminded me of my father as well, who was a great entrepreneur in his own right. He never read beyond primary six, but he was a very, very disciplined, very articulate, very, very pragmatic in his approach. The way he runs his business, you would think he went to Cambridge or to Harvard University. And he was so organized that he ran the business so effectively and efficiently. But when my dad turned 70 some couple of years back, my heart broke when he told me that he's giving up the business because his energy could no longer carry the business again. And that reminds me of exactly what you said, that if the system or the structure is not properly built such that it's able to work independently without the personality or the individual who has cast the vision, then when the visionary is tired or is no longer on the scene, the business is going to collapse, it's going to fade away. Mm. And that is exactly what happened to my dad's business. Of course, I didn't pick up interest in the business, and I didn't hand over the business to any of my siblings as well. He had to give it up to somebody else to run the business. And it was so painful for me to see what put food on our table, what sustained our education, a business that I also participated in very much, because many a times we had to travel to Vitafoam, to Vonofoam, to Masterfoam, even to Adiola Odutola foam production. We had to go there together. And I saw how this business literally ran. But at the end of the day, it could not survive. Even my father is not yet dead, but it could not survive a season, just like you said. It will only thrive for a season. After that,
and
it will have the capacity to carry on.
Yeah, isn't this true, like you said, of so many businesses?
Yeah.
Because you see, and which is why there are so many layers to this.
Yeah.
And we will hopefully get into them. Because if you look at a lot of business, I mean, that's why I say no matter what business it is, whether it is delivering a service or creating a product, ultimately, a way to systemize, to think in terms of systems is fundamental.
It's fundamental.
That is why things either succeed or don't.
Exactly.
And you see, ultimately, I was listening to a podcast recently, and I'm going to try to quote them the way they said. They said, if you are very important to your business, then your business is not very important yet. I paraphrased it.
Yeah.
I will hopefully get the way they said. I'll send it.
Yeah, but the way you said it is even powerful in itself.
Yeah. So the idea is this: if your business depends on you, and you are so key to the function of everything, then you don't have an important business. Your business is running a huge risk because you are a bottleneck. In fact, you are the biggest risk of that business. And ideally, what everyone should be striving to get to, particularly in the context of African businesses, right? Because our cousins in the West, in the East, they have gone further than
Yeah.
than this. And
Individual
yeah,
person
so uh, as a culture, as a people, they've learned these things. They've learned to systemize things, and that doesn't mean that businesses don't fail in the
yeah.
east or the west. They still do.
Still,
But imagine if people who invest a lot into organization and processes still fail.
still.
What do you think will be the future of people that don't even fail at all? And that's exactly what you're saying. So, and we're saying that in order to even give ourselves a chance
Mm,
to thrive,
mm,
it is we don't have a choice. It's an imperative.
mm,
We must think this way to
mm,
say whatever it is that we're doing. That's
mm,
why if whether it's a school, if I'm running a school, you can absolutely put that into system blocks.
mm,
I say there is the whole of there's a customer,
mm,
there is a service,
mm,
there are products,
mm,
there are materials that we need, there are different ways people responsible for each of those materials, and put them into blocks. And then ask yourself a question of all of this, where are we having a
mm,
lot of pain?
mm,
Because and I'm taking this in a pragmatic way now to say, how can somebody use this right now? So take anything you're doing. You're running a church, you're
mm,
running a school, you are running a side business, a side hustle, whatever it is. Take a pen and a paper and start to just sketch out all of the key, what they call it value map. What are the things that you do?
mm,
Okay. Now ask yourself, where are we having problems? Where are we having pain? That is the best area to start from. Don't try to do everything, because if you try to do everything,
mm,
honestly, you'll be bogged down. In the next 6 months, you've still not finished.
yeah.
Just take where are we having problems and then say, okay, what are the various steps involved in delivering service in this area or creating this product? Begin to break that down. Go as far as you can in breaking it down. As you start to break it down, you are likely to start getting close to the bottlenecks, to the pain areas, to the pain points. Because what you want to do is to say, okay, how can we simplify? If there's a pain somewhere or there's a crisis in an area, it means that certain things, it's like when you tie a rope together and it's now in a knot, right? So you cannot easily untie it. It becomes knotty, Knotty. So what you want to do is want to try and resolve the knot
Yeah.
so that you can have a string that's straight again. So the more you begin to identify the component part of that area,
Mm,
the closer you will get to resolving it.
mm,
And then asking yourself, okay, these are not just the processes, but now these are the activities involved in delivering this
mm,
area.
mm,
Okay, so who does what?
mm,
When does it need to be done?
mm,
How much resources goes into it?
mm.
The
And
moment,
how are we going to measure it when it is done?
how do we know when what is good?
Yeah.
How do we define what good is?
Yeah.
In other words, you are now beginning to define the metrics,
Mm,
the key indicators that says we are doing well or we are doing badly.
mm,
The more we do those kind of things,
mm,
the likely we are at resolving those issues. But Shegun, I know why oftentimes in our in our own sort of side of the world we don't do it, because that is a mentally tasking
that's
activity. And
necessary.
most of the time we don't like to do
The mental
that.
part.
No, we
We
just
really
want to
love to exert energy.
exactly. So sometimes we believe that when we run around,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
where no, the real work, the real work is the sitting back. That's why they call it strategic thinking.
And
Or it,
strategize.
yeah, when you think through what
Yeah,
you're going to do,
yeah.
that is in fact, that really is the real work.
That's the real work.
That
It's
is
not
why
it,
that is why
the
managers
execution is not the work.
no
It is
execution.
breaking the breaking the highs and then coming up with a solution, with a strategy.
The
That's
people who
where
get
the
paid,
work is.
yeah, the people who get paid more
Yeah.
are those who tell other people what to do. So to tell people what to do, it means you must understand it. You must
Yeah,
know it.
exactly.
It may so they call them in Peter Drucker's word, they call them the knowledge workers.
You know,
The
they
people
work.
who
Yeah,
know, they are in the operational layer. They are
that's
the They're the management operations layer. They understand what we need to do, and they can link that back to the grand strategy of the company. So that's why you call them the middle management.
Yeah.
So it is those people who then give the builders, the coders work to do, right? Yeah, exactly. So and what they do is, look, what they do, frankly, is simple in a way, but it's also hard work.
Yeah.
What they try to do is to say, instead of saying we need Mr. A or Miss B, what they do is to say, what are the persona? What is this role about? They define the roles and the kind of profile that can fulfill the role. Now, since when I define that, since I did not put your name on it, it means you are dispensable.
Yeah.
It means if you come now and say you're not too important, you slap all of us and you say you're not coming again, they'll say that's fine. We just need to go and recruit somebody, a profile that fits that role.
Exactly.
And that is what happens when people do restructuring, reorganization, corporate transformation. That's what happens. They just redefine, and then they create what they call a target operating model. You know, that was, okay, how do we operate now? Which is they use the term as is. And then they say, okay, how do we want to operate going forward in order to support our next or our current challenges or future challenges? In other words, look, wherever we want to go, we need to reorganize ourselves in order to do it. So when you hear oftentimes that Facebook has just laid off 10,000 workers, or Google, that's what, and that's really what happens. That's what happens in the background.
Exactly.
And they then say, okay, two people are doing this. If we develop a machine that can do it or automate it, then we don't need those two people. What is the cost of doing that automation? Let's say 200,000. Okay. When I would like to get a return on investment, or we get it in the second year. Okay. So if we keep these people, we have to keep it. We have to
for
keep them
30
for
years,
10
for
years, for
example.
30 years, and then unless we are paying them 50,000, so we are going to spend far much more. So that they will then simply, and this is where strategy comes in.
Yeah.
Strategy is the right allocation. Part of strategy is allocating your resources to say, if we put in that 200K upfront to develop the process improvement and our automation, then these individuals that do it will no longer be required.
Exactly.
So when you then hear that they have just done some redundancies, they've done this. In fact, they can even say, to make someone redundant, what should we do? Let's pay them something so that to kind of to give them a soft landing. But they've already calculated that into the overall cost of that. So you may think, oh, I just got a lump sum. And to them, it doesn't matter. They've just solved a problem. And then they keep doing this over and over and over and over. So, but what they do is they don't try to change everything in one go, because that's always going to be too costly. They focus on specifics and say, right, this is a pain point. Let's prioritize that. And then let's now define it. Let's organize that area, or reorganize that area in order to resolve the issues we are facing as is currently, so that we can create a future, a to be that we desire. This literally is what happens in every organization.
Let me also ask you this question. I know the ultimate goal of many of us is to build a legacy. And in building a legacy, there are two ways you can choose to go about it. You can either choose to build a legacy through an institutional system. Even though I'm not a Catholic, but I'm a very big fan of the structure and the system that has been put in place in Catholic. Because when a pope dies, there is no panic, there is no worries. Within 2 weeks, you will be sure that a pope that nobody has ever had, you have never seen the person in the spotlight before. is just going to emerge, and the person is going to fit in perfectly into the structure, into the system, into the institution. And whereas there are some other people, the best way they know to build a legacy is to enhance their branding, to project themselves as indispensable. So I just want to understand, what is the best way to build a legacy? Is it through personal branding or through institutional system?
We can look at that question in maybe a variety of ways. Obviously, there's personal branding.
Yeah.
And then there is organizational branding. I think what we're doing for the most part is looking at this from an organizational point of view,
Yeah.
even though the personal one is also important.
Yeah.
But when it comes, branding itself is actually part of the strategy.
Mm.
It is an offshoot of strategy.
Mm.
And uh, the question you're trying to answer is, how do we want to be seen,
Yeah.
and how do we want to be perceived?
Mm.
When I say seen now, I'm also talking about like physically. How do you want to be seen physically? So that's why you see some people, someone like Mark Zuckerberg. You can count how many times you've seen him in a tie.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he purposefully,
It's only when he's going to White House.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Otherwise, he's just in his gray t-shirt. In fact, I've not seen him in any other color of t-shirt before.
Yeah, other than gray t-shirts.
Yeah, that's personal branding.
Yeah.
And the
Just
idea is,
no too. Always
yeah,
in his black turtleneck.
yeah. So all of these folks, that's branding of a personal nature.
Yeah.
And it has to do with how do I want to be seen, and how do I want to be perceived,
Mm.
right? From an organizational point of view, that's also true.
Mm.
Now, branding itself is a strategic process of creating like a unique or recognizable identity
Mm.
that you can relate to or connect to emotionally
Mm.
for a product. So if, I mean, back in the day, you may remember this now, there was a time when Japanese vehicles were preferred on the continent of Africa, particularly Nigeria,
Yeah.
because people believed that they were, of course, more
Efficient.
fuel efficient.
Overall
Yes,
efficient.
yes. And their parts were also cheaper,
Cheaper. Yeah.
right? So therefore, more available, easier to run, therefore makes better economic sense for most people.
And also
So,
for the
oh, definitely affordable. So economic and then other side. But so what do they do? They organize themselves to make sure that their product was always available to people in Nigeria. And then the customer start to embrace it, start to have some kind of emotional connection with that brand, that this thing makes my life easier.
mm.
That's an emotional side to it. So what my point here is that branding is part of your strategic process
Mm.
where you create an identity that is unique and that can be recognized,
Mm.
which foster some kind of emotional connection so that you can say, oh, I like this thing. See, that word like, it has nothing to do with it's purely emotional.
Yeah.
I like the product.
Mm.
They're very efficient.
Mm.
Aha. That's an emotional connection.
And if you look at, we Africans, we are very emotive. You know, we
Eh,
prioritize emotion above logic.
well, that is true, but it's not only Africans, by the way. So I mean, if I look at I look at so United Kingdom. If you look on the road at a particular time,
Mm.
you will see a lot more of German-made vehicles
Mm.
on the street.
Mm.
But what is the emotional connection? Reliability.
Mm.
And then for the middle class, it also offers you some kind of you're driving a Mercedes or an Audi or those kind of those vehicles. So you feel like there's a status thing to it in a way, right? For people in the middle class. So, and therefore, that's an emotional decision, and this affects every market, no matter in fact every human.
Yeah.
There are brands that you want to be recognized with because, well, you might remember this when we were in secondary school. Do you remember when some of our classmates wear a shirt? Someone would just quickly go and pull out the collar and just say, "Oh,
Yeah,
let me see the brand."
to check the
I'm sure you
designer.
remember.
I remember very well.
Exactly. So, what is the emotional connection?
Yeah.
Somebody believes that if I wear a Tommy Hilfiger, it gives me value. It makes me more
For
important than
Calvin
you.
Klein.
Yeah, or Calvin Klein. It makes me feel more like I have personal value that is
Yeah,
above yours.
yeah,
And therefore, all my classmates will look at me with a different sort of sense of appreciation, like, "Oh man, is the guy." So that's an emotional thing.
yeah.
It's not only a Nigerian thing, it happens everywhere, frankly speaking. It's also the reason why people will go and buy Nike at all costs or queue on a long,
Buy
you know,
Apple phone.
to buy Apple phone, to buy iPod, to buy those things. Those are emotional decisions. But the brand of Apple is recognizable
Yeah,
and it evokes emotion. It they've been able to successfully connect it to the emotion of the customer. So that when you have your iPhone 17, you feel like I've got a good product in my hand. I
yeah,
feel good about myself.
yeah.
Now, that is branding. Now, it means then that branding is a tool you use to shape public perception
Mm,
through physical elements
yeah,
and non-physical elements.
yeah.
So, and it's part of that whole strategy. So you have brand strategy, you have, and this is an aspect in the organization that people, most of the time, the marketing department tend to look after this area and they deploy a lot of resources to it. And at the same time, you want to be seen like that consistently, which is why just check any of these people, whether it is a personal branding or organizational one, they try to be as consistent as possible so that ultimately that brand start to have its own personal value.
Mm,
You call that brand equity.
mm,
So that when you say Apple, your mind just goes straight to the S&P and think $900. That brand now has value.
mm.
So, but but the question is, how do we build organizations? Is it through branding
And then,
or through structures and processes? Is both
yeah,
because both depending on how you look at it, both of them are important because they're all part of strategy of what I would call implementation. Strategy is implementation, or should I say, it is the what and how.
mm,
Now, there are many sides to how. You may have a good product that nobody likes.
mm,
That product will not be successful.
mm,
So, but when that product is liked, people just want to buy it
mm,
without you exerting your energy too much. You just see that your bottom line improves far more than a counterpart product that doesn't have that sort of emotional connection with the customer. So, what am I saying in a nutshell? Structure, processes are as important as we should invest in brand strategy because each has its own place. So we cannot. There are multiple sides of of an organization,
Well,
and
what then happens when there is too much emphasis on personal branding over and above the institutional?
well, that question, that exactly when you say there's too much. So so in my field of study, right, or shall I say, well, I used to practice in that field. There's something that's called gold plating.
Mm,
Gold plating means that you know the requirement and you've done it, but you are now going excessively above and doing what is not really asked for. Nobody has asked you for that. So people that do this from an organizational point of view, from a professional point of view, the idea is not just to do anything for the sake of it. That's why I say that every process must be connected to outcomes, must be connected to the structure. There must be that interconnection between everything, where you can also say, you can also have KPIs around everything you do, key performance indicator. When we do XYZ, what does it lead to? So that will answer and curtail the excesses of doing too much. People that ultimately like they do too much is there are people who haven't invested in what we are talking about, where you break everything you need to do down. You have a proper organization, definition, and structure around what you do. If you do that, you will start to identify the excesses and even people that even do this, they still have excesses. That's why they then do what they call corporate transformation or business transformation programs. Because some at times, just like if you have a garden, weeds can overgrow. In fact, if you are planting vine, do you know, Shegun, that if you have a vineyard where you've planted vines, one of the things you must continue to do is to trim off excess growth. That's why we also cut our nails, because invariably, any living organization that is growing will have excess growth here and there. And to maintain productivity, manage risk, prevent accident, prevent damages, you must cut certain things or you must continue to prune and trim. So people who go overboard when it comes to personal branding over and above other side of the organization is because they have lopsidedness in their system. They've not, that system does not have active management. You see, the reason why organizations install a management and make them accountable is because they know that this thing must be maintained. So if you take any organization, you will see the CEO, you will see that's the chief executive officer, you will see the operating officer, you will see the information officer. All of those people, they are called the management. Their job is to make sure that this living organism continues to thrive, which means they don't leave it as they found it yesterday. They continue to
fine tune it.
work, fine tune it, transform it, ask questions, check everything. I mean, when I was in Nigeria, and I used to do a lot of what they call my initial area at that time was business intelligence, and it was always to help the management organizations to see what their business is telling them through data. So, which means we will ask them, what are the things you want to measure? Then we'll find out what data lies behind those things, and we'll help them to define their metrics in a way that they can relate to it using data. So when net profit is going downhill, not by the end of the month, today you should be able to see it. And that will make you ask a question and say, hey, what happened in production yesterday? Okay, oh, that will say, oh, we have problem with supply chain. Well, you go there, what happened in supply chain? Why wasn't this tanker delivered? You begin to, you are not waiting until a
At the
problem.
end of the year.
No. You are on it. In fact, sometimes hourly, in fact, real time, so that you can spot um, issues. In fact, the word issue is even a big word. You don't want issues to occur. You want to spot the risks. Because a risk that is not managed is what becomes an issue. So what you want to do is spot the risk quickly enough so that you can mitigate and can address it and nip it in the bud before it becomes something big. So these are things that organizations do, and that is why they pay people in that management area a lot of money, because their job is to ensure that this thing continues to be profitable and efficient and effective, which then delivers value to the stakeholders. If they don't do it, stakeholder value will be affected, guaranteed. So imagine then that somebody now has an organization, whether it is a small business or a big one or a country, and your management is very poor. You don't even know what your risk, you don't know what's happening in your business, in your organization. You don't have a way to track things and measure things. there will be problems. It is guaranteed. It is inevitable. So that can explain what happens in our sector. And then imagine that you're whatever you have put in place, you are just doing it based on reasons, maybe through nepotism, or you just you're just doing it for personal benefit. Well, from an organizational point of view, I'm going to say that your process does not align with the strategy and what does not align with the structure. I'm just looking at it from that point of view. Now, you can call it corruption, you can call it nepotism. I can just talk about it purely from the process and structure and data so that I don't need to get involved with you and pick a fight with you. I just say, look, you are not doing these things well. Now, you can now say, you can define your behaviors in all of those things, right? In fact, as a matter of fact, Shagun, do you know that if you're going to do this very well, you also align each of those things with the values of the organization?
Mm,
Because the idea is there must be no orphan process
mm,
or entity in the organization.
mm,
The process, the people,
mm,
the structure, the value, the branding, everything must all be interconnected
mm,
so that nothing is just an outlier, just standing by its own.
mm,
And they must stand together in harmony. They must relate in harmony. That harmony is what determines the health of the organization. If anything is out of harmony,
mm.
that organization is not healthy. Even if on the face of it, it still looks like the logo is still beautiful. No, you are already sick.
Now, Kule, can we highlight some of the specific building blocks that are required to build system or structures? Can we identify them one by one? We may not be able to do everything, but
Correct.
we have specific
Yes.
um, concepts or ideas that shapes organizational structure or
Yeah.
system.
Yes. Perfect. That's a good question. And this will vary from industry to industry. It
Yeah.
will vary even from but by and large, you have similarities. And it's those similarities, the principal similarity that I want to try and identify. So we talk about process, talk about people, we talk about data, we talk about technology. Fundamentally, all of this impact both system, both systems and structures, fundamentally. But you can now take each of them and now say, now let's talk about process. What are the process that are the processes involved in my line of practice? So if that's I was using school that time, but if I use a bank, number one, what are the things that are important to a bank? A bank has product. A bank has customers. A bank has uh, buildings, infrastructure. A bank has um, human resources, people, workers, generally speaking. A bank has what are the other things? Services, products and services. So I can take each of them that way, right? And it gives me the first layer of the processes. I've not talked about the structure yet.
Yeah.
I've not talked about the systems yet.
By the various elements.
Yes, I start at the highest level and begin to break down. So at least I have a visual view, a bird's eye view of all the major components
Mm,
involved with my business.
mm,
Now I take it and I say, if I now take the product,
mm,
what are the kind of products we have?
mm,
You now say you have, oh, corporate banking,
mm,
you have commercial banking, you have retail banking,
mm.
you have this telephone bank. You begin to break them down.
Credit
So,
man.
and you begin to, they call it decompose. You begin to decompose them until you can no longer break anything down.
Mm,
And say, you keep asking, what? What? What?
And
What?
how?
No, what first? By the time you ask your what to the sixth degree,
Yeah.
you are likely to have broken that because
Yeah.
in management study, in business process management study, the idea is that there are 5 major layers of business processes.
Mm.
So by the time you ask that question 6 times, then you should have broken it down sufficiently
Yeah.
to the last one. Then you now begin to ask yourself, okay, in order to do each of these processes, what are the things involved?
Mm.
So you are now defining the activities involved.
Yeah.
Those activities, eventually you are revealing the bones. It's like stripping the skin away, and so that you can identify all the bones of the body. All right. Now, you now begin to ask yourself, okay, what are the people? How are people? Um, what are the people involved, or the kind of people roles involved in this to deliver each of these processes? You begin to define them, and you are linking them to each of those processes. Doing that alone, you will know whether you are doing something that, wait a minute, this is even meaningless. We're just wasting money here. Why? What are we doing this for?
Exactly.
Or you'll be able to know somebody who is doing something that is a duplication of what somebody else is doing.
Right. And then you can merge
You
the
can either merge departments or reorganize it in the best way possible. Then you ask yourself, what are the various systems that we use, or the tools we use? Okay, we use buildings, we use various machines, we use vehicles. You begin to do that. And in order for you to know, okay, is there any waste? Is there any efficiency? There must be a clear definition of what each of those things is doing. This is a non-negotiable aspect of business. In fact, the reason why most businesses don't even thrive in Africa is that we don't really invest. Not that we can't do it, but we don't invest in that kind of thing.
Yeah, because we believe it is cumbersome, complex, very
Yeah,
hectic, very time
exactly.
consuming. And
Yeah,
we think we can cheat that process.
exactly.
We can
We
obstruct that
we
process.
exactly. An average African, right, believes in um, doing things because we are a high context society. We believe in individual skills.
Mm.
The concept of okonometa, meaning, there's someone like me. I'm an Akondanian. I'm a
Yeah,
special person,
special person.
right? It's not just an African thing. The Greeks also thought that way too. So Hercules was just, this man it was just born like that. There's no one like him. He's so powerful.
Powerful.
Now, since that time, we have never found an Hercules again because once the Hercules died, that was the end of him. So, so and this is in our culture. Say, oh, Ogun, Shango, oh man, what a big powerful man. And instead of saying what makes up this person, we just say, no, don't touch him. Just go and build something around him
And they find,
and they find him. Right. So, and again, we can see we're not used to investigating things.
yeah,
So you can look at something like a tree can grow now. That tree, because maybe there's a defect and it grows in a particular way that is strange, and everybody say, "Wow, this tree has a sign on it."
yeah.
Don't
We
touch it.
buy it.
Yes, because we don't really investigate.
Yeah.
We just we do a lot of what I call observational learning
Mm.
rather than investigative learning.
And we attribute powers, we attribute some from some supernatural ability or
And there may in fact be supernatural, but what I'm saying is that we don't do investigative learning. In fact, investigation oftentimes is discouraged. They say, you
but
want to go and
I get it, but so if you look at like thunder, for example, until we were able to explain it through physics, we are always thinking it is something that is mysterious and supernatural and all that.
Yeah.
But if you look at the way uh, physics has been able to explain the rationale behind how thunder is produced,
Mm.
you will suddenly discover that there is nothing supernatural about it.
Yeah, and it goes to say that what is a mystery is just what you don't know or
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
Now, can somebody have enough bodies of knowledge to even manipulate how thunders work?
Mm.
I can do, and people have developed bodies of knowledge that can say, I can make thunder strike.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a specialized area of knowledge. But if you don't know it, it's a mystery to you. You think I don't mess with me. But it's because I've invested in knowing,
Yeah.
okay, I know the principle behind thunder. I also know how to manipulate the parameters of it.
Yeah.
So
So
I can make thunder strike.
yeah,
Now, there are people who invest in that.
yeah,
So they will say, oh, they make the powers of heavens to shake and all that kind of thing. You know, just like people have learned to fly planes, learned to build various sophisticated tools. Yes, it's because they've investigated that area. So
yeah.
my point here is that the more investigative learning we do, asking the question why,
Mm,
and then what,
mm.
and then how, the more we're likely to refine and
Processes.
get further insight into the things around us. But from our culture, we don't do it. In fact, we're often discouraged from doing it because it was always seen to be the preserve of some people who are the the selected few that should do those things, and that exists in every culture, to be honest with you. But the difference is that more other cultures, they sort of encourage more of those investigative learning, and that's how they begin to discover more and more things that we haven't really discovered. And that's also why those environments seem to be more creative. You see that there's a certain part of the world where they build planes, they build cars, they build things. It's because they investigate those things. They create a lot of processes, right? But the reason why we don't have enough of those in our own space is because most of our learning are more of observational, right? And that's why even when we learn in school, we will try to memorize things, not necessarily focus on how it works. Whereas if you go to school, maybe in America there or UK, wherever, most of their teaching is more of to kind of find out how that thing works so that you can not only produce it but do a better version of it.
Mm,
That's how that is how some other cultures study. So anyway, my point here is that the more of that investigative type of learning we do, the the greater the chances of us refining and building better things and also learning to even put better structures to what we have. Otherwise, we just have no chance. Honestly, I look at Africa and I ask myself, how many companies are up to 100 years old?
mm.
I don't think there are. Is
There
there
is
any at
none.
all? I-
Maybe unless you want to pick First Bank. First
Well,
Bank,
yeah, okay, well, but
First
First
Bank
Bank
maybe
though is not indigenous. It's not.
is not
eh,
indigenous.
yeah.
Yeah,
So okay, that's fine. Even okay, let's even say whether indigenous or not, maybe First Bank,
yeah,
right? And I think you can count them on your fingers.
yeah. They are not. You can't. I don't think we can count five in Nigeria.
Yes. So the question is, why don't organizations last? Is it just because we are unable? I don't think it's because we are not able. After all, you see a lot of Africans working in all these other organizations all over the world.
Yeah,
So it's not that we don't have that. In fact, you see, I mean, look at Gatwick Airport, for example.
yeah.
Mr. Bayo Awolese,
Always Ogulesi.
Ogunlesi, oh, sorry, is the owner of it. In fact, even is this he actually owns two airports in the UK,
Mm,
right? It's a Yoruba man. So we don't lack ability. I think it's just the fact that um, only few and far between people are investigative in their learning,
mm,
and that is why there's limited entrepreneurship in
mm,
our space.
mm,
Um, yes, organizations can be started and fail, even when you have done your very best and you learn the very best practices. But we're trying to say that if there are more of it,
mm,
right? It's all about sample space. If there are 100 organizations and maybe the failure rate is 80%, and I will still have 20, then we say at least we are getting to something, right? Well, we're not quite near what you would call anything um, that is significant, not yet.
yeah, totally. In developing a system or structure, strategy is very, very important. And like I gave a quote at the beginning from Roberta Hines, who says that strategies helps us to build the structure to deal with change. In other words, if you want to bring a transformation to an organization or to a society or to a business, for you to deal with those processes, you have to change certain behaviors. You have to change how you do things. You have to change your approach, the way you apply yourself to those issues. And this is where strategy comes in, because one of the one of the things strategy does is to give you an action plan. Is the action plan, the plan itself is not the strategy. It is you now enforcing that written down information, and then applying, executing that information. That is where strategy lies. Lies. Now, you've also mentioned something about strategic thinking and then strategic leadership. The purpose of this podcast is so that we can develop strategic leaders, not just transformational leaders, but leaders who are able to bring in ideas and then implement them in such a way that they are able to produce the change or the transformation that we desire in the society. And this requires a lot of different types of strategies. So I just want to ask, what is a strategic mission? If a leader or a country, for example, or an organization wants to change certain behaviors that they believe uh, are not okay or no longer necessary for the organization to thrive, what exactly are the composition of the strategy that needs to be put together before an organization can say we're embarking on a strategic mission? How does that work out when we say we want to go on embark on a strategic mission?
Yeah, I think we might have alluded to this at the beginning of this discuss today when we were saying that fundamentally the question of mission
Mm,
is actually one that helps us to ask ourselves what value are we contributing
mm, mm,
or what problem are we solving,
mm,
and why is that problem
important.
important to be solved? Why do
Mm,
we need to solve it?
mm,
Answering that question
mm,
is really what defines the mission.
mm, 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 mm,
Because
mm.
at the end of the day,
Ah,
a mission statement must clearly define what problem the organization is solving.
mm,
It must.
mm,
Of course, there is I'll call it a fluid link between the purpose and vision because the but it comes together in a mission. Anybody can, Shegun, anybody can say, "Oh, this is my purpose in life," right? I see this vision. It begins to crystallize when you're able to define your mission. Your mission is, even when we talk, we say, "What's your mission here? What brought you here?" It means that whatever you saw, whatever you felt so passionate about, already has gone beyond just thinking or feeling into driving action or what I call motivation. So I would say mission is your purpose and vision plus motivation plus passion. Because then it means that you are no longer, it's not just something on paper. There's something that you are now move. See that word move. There's movement to the vision. And in simple terms, I put it this way. A mission statement must do what they call problem definition very clearly. Every problem is not always what it seems. How you understand the problem is when you have defined it. So there are two sides to a problem. There is problem finding when you just find it, there must be a problem here, right? And you're seeing things, you think, that must be the problem. But everything is not always at the same at first. It is in the course of definition that you now know, what I thought was the problem is not actually the problem. It is actually this. Imagine if there's water leak in the house. What are you going to be thinking? You may be saying, go and bring bucket. Let us try and collect this water. But is that necessarily the problem? No. It may be that as you are opening somewhere in the wall, you now saw, look at this pipe. There's a rust there. That rust is where that leak is coming from. You have now properly identified the problem and it has been defined. So when you want to solve it, you know the pipe, you know the diameter of the pipe to buy, you know the kind of workman you need to bring in, you know the kind of tools you need to buy to solve that problem. But if I was just collecting water and bring a big basin and collecting water, all I'm doing is treating symptoms. I've not solved the problem. And that's why a mission statement must have this vital element of problem definition. So that when you now begin to deploy your strategy, you are putting your money,
you're attacking the problem.
Your resources where the real issue is. You are not solving a problem that doesn't exist, or you are not solving you're not solving symptoms, and compounding the problem.
Exactly.
This is very important.
Yeah. Now, I remember when I look back at my own life. Recently, I went to look at the book. I will call it. I've written some book before now, but they are probably maybe books that I wrote in my developmental stages.
Yes.
But I looked at the book, one of the major book, the first book I would say that I would call a book, Neighborhood Transformation. I was going through that book last week, and I was reading some aspects on social gospel in the book, how I transitioned into social gospeler. And I was so pleased to see that some of the things that I wrote in that book, some of the ideals, some of the ideas that I tried to write in that book, I am so thrilled that it is exactly those things that is now manifesting in the way I pastor, in the way I preach my sermons, in the way I relate with the people. because prior to that time, my emphasis was just on just getting people saved, just emphasizing salvation. You just have to be saved, and
Shagun, if you don't mind me interrupting you, the question, what is salvation? Because it says
exactly
everything is as we conceive them. You see, it is how we see
yeah,
that influence our actions.
yeah,
So if we think salvation is this, then
yeah.
that's exactly what. If we think it is making people sober and then come and say, "I'm sorry for my behavior," oh, I drank 2 bottles of vodka yesterday, oh, that's bad. I don't.
Yeah,
It's not salvation, by the way. Well, maybe it is
it may be
maybe
part
it
of
is
it.
maybe it is
Yeah,
part of salvation.
yeah,
But the word salvation itself, you see, is misunderstood.
yeah,
And everything we only go as far as we see.
yeah.
But anyway, sorry, continue your story.
Thank you. So I was always emphasizing salvation. You have to be saved. You have to be born again. All those things are very good, but Kunle, you've always known me. I'm very objective. When I do certain things for a period of time and I did not get the kind of result that I'm really looking forward to, I try to back up a little bit and try to reassess the process and see and really look at what I'm doing to see if there is a problem, just like we have been talking about system and processes. Uh, and I did that, and thank God for the book uh, from Walter Rauschenbusch, uh, the book from Charles Sheldon. These were books, these were authors that really shaped me in this idea, this notion of not limiting my idea of salvation to personal salvation. Of what benefit is saving people when the structure that is controlling the people is rotten, is decayed.
Let me give an example. It's just like when you are washing your dish
Yeah,
and you wash your plate and you put it back into the dirty.
exactly. That was a perfect.
You just wasted your time.
Exactly. You've done the washing quite.
Your activity
Right. Yeah,
has no it's activity without meaning.
exactly. So if you really want to do the work of salvation, as it were, you have to go to that source of that debt, where the debt is really coming from, and really tackle it from that point. It's just like how you are how to go about strategic mission. You have to first of all define your problem.
Yes.
You might be treating symptoms and you are thinking you are dealing with a problem, whereas you are not dealing with the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, what many of our churches are doing today, they are doing quite a bit. They are doing their best. That's not to undermine what they are doing, but I would rather say many of our activities, because I will also include myself. I don't want to exonerate myself. Many of our activities are mere symptoms treatment. We are only treating the symptoms.
And guess what? Symptoms treatment is a very lucrative business.
It is, because it appears as if you are doing something, you are getting
The work will never finish.
exactly.
You're always busy. You see?
Exactly.
And that's why most people, even some big organizations, they
Yeah.
just keep you treating the symptoms. They never quite treat the problem.
Problem.
Just be
Yeah.
managing the symptoms, manage
Yeah.
it, because which means I can keep as a customer for
Yeah.
70
For
years.
7 years. Yeah. So it now means that instead of treating the main issue, we are busy treating the periphery of the problem. Now, look, for example, because I'm very pragmatic, I look at the kind of work that people like Pastor Kumoye, Pastor Adeboye, Bishop David Oyedepo, although Bishop Oyedepo took his own to a length of affecting the social structure to some extent, which I will give him credit to. But if you look at the bulk of work that they have done in trying to promote personal salvation, and if you compare it to what is still left undone, believe me honestly, is as if, to me, some people may not agree, but to me, it's still as if nothing has yet been done yet.
In reality, yeah, I think you see this is why every living thing
Yeah,
needs maintenance.
yeah.
Every living thing needs transformation.
Mm.
Just like every business. Just so I can take whether it is church business or anything else, you can put into a system structure. Say every living system requires continuous transformation. So the thing I can say with all of these elders in the faith, they've done one part of it,
Yeah,
but the work is progressive,
yeah.
and it would be unfortunate if with all of the investment, we that are coming after them, we can't see any better.
Yeah.
It would be most
That
unfortunate.
is exactly where I'm driving at. Now, these people have done their bit. We've seen the work that they've done. We can literally project where it's going to end because they've been there for 4 or 5 decades. They've been doing it. They've produced massive results. But do you know where my pain lies, Pauline? We have seen what this great giant of faith have done. But I am pained in the sense that rather than for our own generation and the people coming after us to also look at how we can advance beyond that level of application of their own ability and capability. Many of the people in my own generation are thinking of duplicating exactly what they've done. You're not going to get any progressive result with that. You have to be, just like we said, you have to be able to refine the process in such a way that you are not just treating the symptoms anymore. You are advancing your approach in such a way that you are now attacking the problem. And this is the way Walter Rauschenbusch puts it. The personal way of serving people through personal salvation, he considered it to be the old way of evangelism. It is the old methodology of doing evangelism. The argument of Walter Rauschenbusch is this, that if you want to be in that arena where the new form of evangelism will be done, then you don't have to start looking at just looking for people to save individually. You have to look at the structure. You have to look at the system that is producing the abnormalities in the society. You have to address those systems. You have to address those structure, and then try to save, rather than saving individual, you have to save that system and save that structure, so that when you are able to do that, then it becomes an easy task for people as individuals to be saved. So I just want us to kind of deliberate a little bit on how decay and rottenness occurs within a system. How can we say that this system is not functioning in the way it's supposed to function, or this system has been compromised? What exactly do we think we need to do in such a place, in a place when the system is compromised or has become rotten?
No, thanks again, Shego. And I think we've been mentioning various aspects of this: the
Yeah.
structure, the system, the strategy. There are maybe two things we haven't really talked about very much, even though we highlighted them in previous discourse.
Yeah.
And one of them is the organizational values,
Mm.
right? And by extension, the culture
Mm.
that's then produced by the organization. So my point here is all of this part of the organization, every part is so important that you can't leave any alone.
Mm.
And they're all intermoving. In fact, at the end of the day, they all constitute what you actually call the system of the organization.
Mm.
Because the system is an interwoven layers and components that make up an entity, and that system then becomes the organization. So values, of course, by that we mean the principles, the core principles, the beliefs, the ethics that guide the organization so that you can continue to deliver your strategic mission.
Mm.
Right. And the culture is more like the shared system of values, the shared system of beliefs, behaviors, and the norms that you stand for in that organization, right? Okay. If we talk about breakdown,
Mm. Mm.
it has to be that across all of these areas that I mentioned,
Mm.
there is some kind of malfunction.
Mm.
In fact, let me put it this way: staying static is actually never
Strategy.
something to ever encourage an organization, because the breakdown might actually be because you have maintained the status quo for a long time. That may be oftentimes that's where the problem starts from.
Mm.
You're trying to just maintain things,
Do things
and
the way it has always been done.
and the organization has outgrown its current model.
Yeah.
That may be so. Again, you see, when we talk about decay, part of that's a kind of problem.
Yeah.
And what in business transformation terms you want to do is to investigate that.
Yeah.
You want to get to the root of it. There are so many practices. There's Kaizen, there is fishbone analysis. There are various things, but ultimately you're asking yourself why until you get to the root of that. Oh, then you begin to now build your, if you like, your theories of the likely things,
Mm.
which you can then further focus on to investigate, because you can you always have to narrow down your focus area.
Mm.
Anyway, where I'm going with all this is that the breakdown, or the indicators of the breakdown, sometimes begin from the fact that either it almost always goes down to poor management.
Mm.
By that I mean, if you don't have a way of measuring good performance,
Mm.
then poor practices will creep in, no doubt. If I cannot say we are tending in the right direction in this area. So for example, if I look at our, let's say, finance, right?
Mm.
And I look at our net sales, I look at our other financial indicators, and I look at what our targets are versus what our actuals are,
Mm.
and our, like, range of tolerance. Like, what, if we operate within this kind of range, then that means that we're actually doing what we should be doing.
Mm.
Within the particular range, it means it's not quite good enough, but we can do something about it, and things like that. There's a reason why people go to those levels of definition. It's so that you don't want to be caught unawares. You want to be able to pinpoint things as quickly as possible. So first, I would say, if you have no indicators on your car, there's a reason why a car has dashboard. And where, if your battery is weak, you start to flash, say, hey, I'm warning you, because if you don't take it, I will break down on the highway. Or if there's overheating,
Yeah.
something will be telling you. So
Yeah.
all of those dashboard, they are called your key performance indicators.
Yeah.
They tell you. about the health of the system.
of the system. Mm.
This is important. That's also true. In fact, you can do this for a family.
Mm.
In fact, you can do it for an individual, for yourself.
Mm.
For example, if I have not read a book in 1 month, even if I don't have a pain any part of my body, I should be clear that something is wrong already. Because it means that I've gone 28 days without any investment in my mind.
Knowledge.
Something is already wrong, even if it has not shown.
Mm.
That is why most organizations that are smart, they don't wait for problems to occur. They look at what are the things that are indicating to us that we are going in the right direction, even when no apparent problem has already shown. So they don't wait for the so-called decay. What I'm saying, to see decay, that's too long. That's like, imagine wait before something try to decay and smell. The thing has spoiled long time ago. You just didn't see it enough. So imagine somebody who has a cold room where you sell fish. If you wait until the place starts to smell, you are too long. It means you have already been overpowered by bacteria and a serious uh, uh, environmental hazard has already occurred.
Mm.
Rather, what they used to do is a temperature okay? Can we they will take one of the fish, they will test it. What are the metrics of measuring a healthy fish? They will keep on doing that all of the time. Water system, sewage system, they keep doing that all the time. That is why in your America, it's very rare for your sewage system to just break down,
Mm.
or your water system to just break down, or your electric grid to collapse.
Even the sewage system in America, the way they manage it, they know the amount of different content that goes into the sewage system. They know
In other words,
for example, there is a city in Massachusetts recently that they discovered that the rate of cocaine, the level of cocaine in their sewage system was high, which indicates that the usage of cocaine in that area for that period of time was very high.
yes.
They don't have to see people use it.
So my question,
that was an indicator.
why do you think they do all these things?
Yeah.
That is called management. Management is hard work. It's not child's play. They in fact they will trace how much oil is going to the sewage.
Exactly.
They will trace all of why.
Exactly.
Because they are thinking of the whole system. How do we keep the whole system in the best healthy shape?
During the coronavirus, that was what they were using to measure the intensity of the virus in
Yes,
the
yes. They will try and track the atmosphere. What is the level of carbon dioxide there? What is the level of this? They've built system to do these things, and without even looking too hard, they just put up your system. You have like a monitor. It just shows it tells you straight away, so that you don't. What do you think God say? Oh my God! God created human being once. He never went back to the soil. What did he do? He created a system of organic multiplication. So it doesn't have to go each time and be burning down the soil and molding clay.
Yeah.
He did that once.
It does.
Yeah, that's what the system does. He only produced seeds once. He never went back there.
Yeah.
That's why the seed of every tree is in itself.
Oh.
It's called automation.
Yeah.
It's called a system.
Yeah.
If God think like that and we are made in his image, why should we be lazy and not do that as a normal thing? And the question and the truth is this: the better you are at managing resources, the more wealthy you become. Productivity is actually the degree to which you can manage resources by just behaving like God that made you, using his style. So you can already tell. I think I'm answering the question in a different way by saying this: if we do this, Let me tell you why I answer question this way. I mean, answer Shegun. I learned this many years ago. If you ever work in a bank and you are in currency department, they only teach you to recognize the legal tender.
Yeah.
They don't waste their time teaching you all of the
Okay.
fakes because there are so many versions of fake.
Yeah, exactly.
And a smarter person will get another version. So why should I waste my time chasing the tail of every fake, every what do you call it, adulteration?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just need to learn the correct thing very well, original very well, and it's a smart way of thinking. And that's why I say, if you look at what a health organization should be, and you look at that and you implement it, when something and you invest your time constantly monitoring that, tracking it, getting data from it, analyzing it, feeding that back in the system to improve it, you will invariably track when there's a breakdown. You can learn and as much as you like about what breakdown looks like. You will still have breakdown if you never do what a health system should be. So I will focus my energy on learning what it should be and learn to do it very well so that I don't need to learn the various version of the damage. Damage is as varied as they can be as they come. So, but just to be again for the sake of our audience to help, I would say number one is first the indicators because you don't want the problem to occur. But peradventure, the problem has now occurred. Oftentimes is related to the process, to the structure, to the redundancies in the system, to the fact that you have orphaned processes or structure that don't have any. Somebody just say, it's my brother's auntie's uncle. I'll just give him a job. I say, come and work here. You have just employed somebody whose employment has nothing to do with your structure. Just because it's your family member, just say, yeah, come and work for me. You've just created an unhealthy system, an imbalanced system, and it's a matter of time. My point is this: you cannot have a process that has nothing to do with the structure. You can have a structure that has nothing to do with the process that is vital to the productivity of the organization. You cannot have a value that is meant to support this organization and system that is violated. You can't have it. Everything is linked. You cannot allow a culture to develop in your organization that has nothing to do with supporting your organizational brand, your values, your structure system. Do you know, Shagun? Just a matter of respect, right? Just talk about respect. The reason why organizations with an organization will say one of our values is respect. I'll give you an example. If we have a value that is respect and we make sure that everybody learns about it and we structure our value delivery or service delivery to support that value of respect, guess what? When the customer comes in, he feels respected, right? We treat him with respect. He does not need to take us to court because he has not been abused. He has not been violated. What does that do for us? That protects our business. Then our business can maintain its brand equity to say, oh, I like that. And the emotional connection that customers have that, I like them. Whenever I talk to them, I just feel very good. They treat me with so much value. Can you see how these things link together? So everything is so linked. And that is the whole system. So if any part of this begins to break down and it's not immediately addressed, it's a matter of time. Breakdown, cracks will start to open, start to see the decay, start to see things crumbling. Just because, and guess what? A company can suffer reputational damage. A company can be fined. Oh, do you know how many companies get fined in millions just because they violate certain trust issues or some personnel issues, some financial issues, some regulatory? A lot of fines go. That is what keep the regulators in business. because they always find all the things you are doing wrong and they find you.
Yeah.
So you can see how all these things connect. And that's my point, that listen, we have to understand, to think this way, to see how all the pieces, all the constituent parts connect.
Mm.
All I like a scripture that says, in Colossians it says that he is before all things, and
Mm.
in him all things consist. Even God thinks that way. God thinks in a system way. Everything consists in him, right? The rain, the soil, the atmosphere, the vegetation,
They're
the
all
the
connected to
animals,
him.
everything is connected. It's an ecosystem.
Yeah.
God thinks in system ways.
Yeah.
The sun, the moon, everything in their seasons, all of that systems.
Mm.
This is God, our Father. So how can you have a nation that is so religious but that doesn't even see this kind of thing? So question, you're asking yourself, what exactly are you doing with all the religion?
Mm.
If you're not learning this sort of things, you're not saying it,
Mm.
then well, maybe you're also right in saying that we cannot just think in terms of personal salvation alone. We also have to think in terms of, look, society has to be saved.
Yeah. Exactly.
Our families have to be saved. You
Yeah.
have to go, you have to address all of these things, because it is pointless to wash your clothes and then go and
And
put it in
throw
the
it
mud.
in the mud again.
In the mud, it is useless.
Mm.
It is absolutely useless. You wash your pig and it goes straight into the mire.
To the mayor. Mm.
It is useless. It's pointless.
Now, Kule, I think we need to begin to wrap up now. But before we wrap up, I want us to go a little bit political. Well, personally, in some way, I like Tinubu in the sense that he has, if he really wants to work, let's just state it, let me just state it this way. If Tinubu really wants to do the work, I believe he has what it takes.
Mm.
But at the same time, I'm also very conscious of the fact that they always have their own games to play at the end of the day. So, which always hinders the authentic work that he has the capacity to eventually to actually do.
Mm.
Now, we all know the state of Nigeria before Tinubu came into power. Nigeria was already at the brink of total collapse. And we've seen some of the policies that he has put in place, some of the system overhauling that he has put in place. We want to talk about the forex exchange, the foreign exchange, the tax reform. You want to talk about different sector of the economy that he has literally transformed. And if you look at Tinubu very well, you will see that this is a man that is deliberate with his relationships. He's not a man that burns the bridges. He keeps relationship. You can be in a relationship with him 20 years ago. If he still believes there is a value you can add to him, he's going to connect with you even 20, 30 years after to come and do it. And this is an uncommon practice among the politicians. All the current politicians in Nigeria, there is no one in the same level as Tinubu in that regard. Now, as long as I'm not a big fan of him, but at the same time,
Is socially intelligent.
yeah, it's very, very intelligent. And you could see some of these changes that is bringing into the system. But the question I want to ask, do you see him as somebody that has enough sustainability to really produce, to make those changes that is bringing, to produce results in the long term? Because it is one thing for you to bring in some changes, but those changes are only for a short time and then things go back the way they used to be. But I'm not going to I won't give credit to Tinubu until if he's able to finish his term. Maybe if he's lucky enough to come in for the second term and is able to do well, and then we now see the transitioning from him to the next person. That is when I can now finally give my own verdict on him. Then if he has always confirmed what I've always believed about him, then then it will mean I've been always right. But if he's able to disappoint me and able to sustain these changes that is bringing to Nigerian society at this time, if he's able to sustain it even beyond himself, because I know he has that capacity to do it. If he's able to do it, then I would be able to believe that he genuinely has the interest at heart. So I just want us to conclude this section with that engagement in the political space, because obviously, to be very frank, is doing some great work in terms of restructuring Nigeria, which is exactly what we need. We need it. There is no doubt about it. Is bringing those changes. How do you see those changes? Are those changes sustainable, or do you think it's just a short-term changes that is just to propagate their own hidden agenda? How do you see it?
I think on the face of it, I think we, as a country, we've gotten to a point where we almost have no choice
Yeah,
if we're going to remain a viable entity.
yeah.
And
And
some of the
that's
things
why
that
he's making those decisions.
some of the things that are happening now, any reasonable person
Yeah,
will have to deal with these things.
yeah,
In fact, it's amazing that the previous administration did not even think that these things were enough problems to be
yeah,
dealt with.
yeah.
Or maybe they tried, and somehow the culture that has
No,
been
I
now
think that man
ingrained.
was completely clueless. So
Well,
that man,
I'm
completely
reserving
clueless.
judgment. No, I'm reserving judgment to say, maybe, perhaps, and all that. So all of those things that make you not to sidestep the judgment. I'm doing that deliberately because, um, but I think it suffices to say that we have gotten to a point where if we don't address some of these
Yeah,
obvious things really staring us in the face,
yeah,
we really it's in fact it was like we've been on our last leg.
yeah, exactly.
In fact, I think we're actually still on our last leg.
We
To
are
be honest
still
with
on
you,
it. Yeah,
if you look at across all the sectors, the
yeah,
things that are threatening the country,
yeah.
there are things that literally are eating at the core of the nation.
Of the nation. Yeah.
So we're like a patient in intensive care
Mm,
on life support.
mm,
So, and in life support, in acute medicine,
mm.
uh, everything is an emergency. You have to treat them as
Emergency.
emergency. Otherwise, hey, you have no chance.
Mm,
So, to that end, I think for the president to be focusing on some of these things that are there, it's almost like, well, there's no alternative.
mm,
All I'm hoping for, if you ask me, is I hope that the team around him
mm,
also understand
mm. The urgency of
the urgency and how dire our situation is,
mm,
and give it what it takes, and for once just suspend personal agenda.
agenda. Yeah.
Because when it comes to intensive care, it's not really about
Mm,
all these petty things anymore.
yeah.
Is that if you do not do the right things, you're going to lose this patient.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening to the nation now.
Yeah.
If we don't do all the right things, so
Mm,
we don't even have time to be wasting our time anymore. We is the country needs salvation,
mm.
right? So, and we need intelligent, knowledgeable doctors, courageous doctors who can say this one needs amputation. That's the only way you save the patient.
And do you know that he has just made a recent statement anchoring his second term on power, that it is either he gives Nigeria power or there is no second term for him. I'm really looking forward to see how that is going to play out. If he can achieve that, he would have been able to shift my beliefs to some extent, to a large extent, about the kind of personality that he is.
I sincerely hope that we can start to see some measure of transformation, at least things looking, trending
Yeah,
in the right direction, to restore hope,
yeah,
because we have allowed things to
mm,
become so damaged
yeah.
that if we don't make the right decisions now, the only thing,
Something will fizzle out away.
well, I mean, think about security, think about all these things have been allowed to almost go to
Run them
level
down.
zero of damage. So we need the rescue.
Mm, mm.
We do.
Thank you, Kule. This has been an excellent conversation about system structure and strategic leadership. I want to thank you so very much for your contribution, for your participation, for your friendship. I believe this is a very rich conversation that we've had. Uh, we look a little bit more serious because today there is no much laughter like our previous podcast, because this is something we're really dealing with, an issue here, and I think we actually gave it the kind of attention that we needed to give to it. So I just want to thank you for coming up on board once again, and I hope to see you maybe later this month again, because we were supposed to do this last week. We weren't able to do it.
That's right. That's right.
We'll move it to today. And maybe we can just have another one towards the end of this month, because this month is a long month, 31 days. So we can as well have another podcast this month, just to
By the grace of God.
just to compensate for February.
Indeed.
We didn't have any podcast. So Kule, I want to thank you once again. God bless you.
Thank you, my friend, as always. It's always a pleasure to work together in this capacity, and I always appreciate the privilege. Our friendship is not one that I take for granted, and you know that. So it's always an honor to work together as we have for many years. So thank you for continuing to provide leadership in the work that you do. God bless you, and I look forward to our next episode.
Thank you so much. And to
Thank you.
all our viewers, we really want to appreciate you. We just want you, we just don't want you to take this podcast as a pleasure ride. The purpose of this podcast is for you guys to really to really roll up your sleeves and get to work and get to action. Let's begin to do the work. Let's begin to do the work of what we have been expressing through this podcast. We're not just doing this to entertain anybody. We are in this for people to take action. Action, that is what we need from all our viewers. And until we see you next time, God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye. God bless.